I was kind of like hoping that after the weekend, it'd be like, okay, we could put Rachel Zegler and Snow White behind us forever. Like we're in a post Rachel Zegler Snow White world now, and it just felt like the sky was bluer and the birds were singing and everything was fresh and new. But it's just the news will not stop coming. And when I opened up YouTube today, it was nothing but Snow White, and I was like, oh, I just closed YouTube back up. But now we're gonna contribute to it. You're telling me? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we got to talk about the biggest bomb, but we also have to talk about all the blame. Everybody's blaming everybody on this one.
Yeah, it's all
Rachel Zegler's getting it. The fandom's getting it. MAGA's getting it. For somehow this is a Trump thing. They might have just made a bad movie, Aaron.
They might have just made a bad movie with bad creative decisions that they second-guessed a million times and reshot it to hell, with an actress who proved very unpopular because she can't keep her stupid pie hole shut and caused them a bunch of controversy they didn't need. They might have listened to a bitter little dwarf who didn't want any other little people getting work, so he came out and vilified the movie, thus, forcing them to use CGI abominations for the dwarves. There's a million things that went wrong with this movie, but first and foremost is the fact that you have an actress who has never had a hit, who is not liked by the general public, and makes herself unlikable with every single thing she posts on social media, and apparently didn't listen to her PR people that she was assigned.
Disney's live-action Snow White is officially a bust. The film earned a domestic intake of $43 million and $87 million worldwide from Tuesday to Sunday, and that's going against a $270 million budget. When all is said and done, Snow White could give the Marvels a run for its money. That film had losses exceeding $300 million in total. In fact, according to Variety, the break-even point for Snow White is at $700 million worldwide. This is going to be a brutal money loser for Disney. I don't see how it could have went any other way.
No, I don't either. I mean, there is a chance that it legs out to, not be the biggest flop, but it's not gonna make its budget back. It's not gonna break even. It's gonna lose money, even if it does leg out for a while. And I don't think that there's any real evidence that it will. You got Minecraft coming. That's going to grab the kid audience. I mean, that doesn't look good at all, but I think that you'll get a decent amount of kids wanting to go see it, even though it looks god awful. The best hope that Snow White has is the fact that it doesn't really have any competition in its second week, for that market. You got Working Man coming out, which, like I said, I'm excited about. About time. God, a movie that has some testosterone in it. Oh, please. It's about time.
But everything about the movie, all the buzz around it is pretty much negative. Across the board, the critic reviews are bad. Across the board, the fan reviews are bad. The cinema score was bad.
I mean, it's not made for us. It's not the kind of movie that you and I would be interested in seeing.
I've seen Snow White, and it was fine.
Yeah, no,
I'm not opposed to watching Snow White. I'm
not either. And you've got kids, so you're going to get roped into some kids movies every now and then, and you'll try to find something to enjoy about them. It's no G.I. Joe the movie, I can tell you that. It's not for us, so it was never really going to appeal to our demographic. But what does kind of fit into our wheelhouse is just all of the cultural conversation around it, and just what a big deal it became. Just the fact, and then after the fact, it seems like Disney's definitely on a PR tour to get back at Rachel Zegler for tanking the movie, because those stories came out about how difficult she was to work with. Apparently she was difficult on West Side Story when she was, even more of a nobody. I still don't think she's a somebody. She's certainly famous. She's certainly infamous, but not necessarily famous. She's not a star. There aren't really a lot of movie stars anymore. There's maybe like Tom Cruise, and that's it. There aren't people who can generally get people to the theater, except maybe, Denzel Washington in the right budgeted movie. You spend about $40 million on a movie, Denzel will make you some money. She's certainly tanked her career, and it seems like they actually went out of their way to do a little bit of political assassination on her by releasing all the details. The fact that they had to hire additional security for Gal Gadot because of Rachel Zegler's Free Palestine posts tying it to Snow White. So then Gal started getting death threats. So they had Disney had to pay for extra security around her. All kinds of stuff like that. This is just a portrait of a dumb narcissist that can't get out of her own way.
Disney is 100% blaming Zegler. A Variety report filled with anonymous sources, most likely Disney connected, paint Zegler as irresponsible and, quite frankly, erratic in behavior during the promotion of Snow White. The story goes that Zegler's critical comments about the original Snow White caught many people at Disney off guard, but the studio decided not to act up on it due to free speech lawsuit that had been recently thrown at them by Mandalorian star Gina Carano. Things only worsened when the following few months, only days after Donald Trump won the presidency in November, Zegler posted, "Fuck Donald Trump," and made Trump supporters never know peace. This led to Disney paying for a social media guru to work with Zegler and to vet posts before Snow White opened in theaters. So they did identify there was a problem, but unfortunately for them, they had identified it far too late in the game.
Far too late. I don't know that I believe necessarily that that she just went out and started saying things about the original, off the cuff, that was all her. That feels like, a very Disney thing at the time was, go out there.
It felt like received opinions on why the movie needed to be updated. I didn't feel like original opinions of hers.
No, it felt like something that like she was being fed, like, well, you got to go out and talk about how this is a modern, remake. Because remember, this is when she made these comments, this was all very much around the time that everything was, going for the modern audience. Make sure that we're talking about the modern audience and updating it. We're going to get rid of those things that were problematic. She was probably being advised by people within Disney to do that. And so she went out there with gusto and, did what she was told. And it ended up blowing up in their face. And then they wanted to walk it back. I mean, I don't entirely blame her because Disney had a very substantial history of insulting their own stuff, on the way to try to find the mythical modern audience.
No, the moment that she was announced as the lead in Snow White and the moment that she had comments about that original Snow White, anybody with common sense would have fired her immediately. Like, wow, you really don't like the movie? You don't think that Snow White is a timeless classic? You're the first animated film ever by Walt Disney?
The thing that built this entire empire, this entire empire started out with, that animated feature that gave them the seed
calling
money
the prince a stalker for trying to save her.
I mean, I feel like maybe they gave her talking points and she just went way too far with it. But here's the other thing. I think the reason they didn't fire her because these were comments that were made at D23 and kind of went, under the radar largely. They didn't really catch on with YouTubers. They didn't get a lot of exposure until COVID. And then you got the image of the six bandits that everybody, I still think that was supposed to be what they were replacing the dwarves with. And then they got a huge backlash to that. So then they had to go back and put the dwarves in the movie and do reshoots and make the CGI abominations that we all saw on the screen.
How do you not Graham just have real dwarves? They exist.
Well, that'll upset Peter Dinklage. Because he wants to pull the ladder up behind him.
Den of Geek are blaming the fandom. For more than 10 years, cranks, online provocateurs, opportunists, and yes, bigots have infiltrated and influenced how your culture acts and is perceived by the outside world. From Gamergate to 4-hour-long video essays dissecting Star Wars movies from half a decade earlier, fandom is increasingly being defined as a bunch of misanthropic, bitter, and mostly whiny white guys who want to obsess over how many Jedi Academy course credits Daisy Ridley logged in The Last Jedi, or the skin color of a young woman playing a princess in a fantasy remake of something they probably haven't watched in a quarter century. It wasn't always this way, and this toxic rightward drift has been deliberately manipulated. Let's please stop playing into it.
First of all, go ahead. Quadruple down on that. It's worked out so well for you. Keep pushing that. The truth of the matter is, it isn't a rightward shift. It's a rightward reaction to the hard left shift that they tried to push everything in entertainment into. So you had movies coming out in the 80s, coming out in the 90s, coming out in the early 2000s, all very diverse. You had diverse casting, you had diverse characters. I mean, when did Bad Boys came out? 2 black leads. That movie made a ton of money, created a franchise. There's all kinds of examples that you can point to of diverse movies that were, making money and opportunities that were for those actors. But what happened was the left decided that your skin color and your ethnicity and your cultural background and who you decide to bang. I was getting there. All of that is the most important thing about people. We need to categorize them that way. And they started making movies that way. And so you did see a rightward shift because people said, I don't like this. I don't like how far, basically people just stayed where they were and the culture shifted left and everybody
they tried to shift it
now
left.
That's right. They tried to shift it and you got the rejection. You got the pendulum swing. This is what we always talk about. You push too hard in one direction, the pendulum swings back hard. So they keep putting this excuse out there. Well, let me tell you something. Even if you were right, which you're not, if the country is full of bigots that doesn't want this sort of thing, and you're a company that wants to make money, you better start making movies and television and video games for the bigots. Because if that's the way you're going to label them, well, that's your audience. So you can keep trying to create a new audience out of thin air and try to, say like, oh, the modern audience, but it doesn't materialize. It's not there. It doesn't exist. If it does exist, it's in numbers too small to support these blockbusters that you're trying to create, all this money that you're pouring into these movies. And the movies don't even need to cost that much. That's the irony. It's every producer needs to get, I need 10 million, to produce this movie off the top. So before you even shoot a single thing of film, you've already spent a ton of money on all of the Hollywood bloat that goes into making these pictures. Meanwhile, in Japan, they make Godzilla -1 for $15 million, and it looks amazing.
The days of calling people bigots and homophobes and this and that and racists and all that stuff, and people reacting to it the way that they want is over. No one cares what these guys have to say about it. This is what we've been taught over the last 10 years. If you give a single fucking inch to these psychopaths, they will take 5 miles. Fuck it. I don't care if Snow White was made for me or not. I can see what you're doing. It's inauthentic. It goes for your message. It's not about entertainment, and we're fucking tired of it. And I'm not letting you take another inch of anything. You get no more ground anywhere. It doesn't matter if the movie's made for me or not. This is the reaction that they're getting.
We're not only not giving any more ground, we are now actively pushing back. We are reclaiming ground that was surrendered because some people didn't like you calling them names. Can you imagine?
It was very effective for about 3 years.
Yeah, and some of us took the heat from the very beginning for standing up against retarded communists, and we were vilified and hated for it and called all kinds of names, but that's fine. We stood there and we took it. And now everybody is coming up behind us, finally joining the fight because they realize that this thing's just going to keep going. There is no live and let live with these people. There is no coexist because they will just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing until they push you off the cliff. That is their goal. So you know what you need to do? You need to not only plant yourself like a tree and push back, you need to push them all the way back and just be done with this. It's over. All of this media, you guys are collapsing on yourselves. The venture capital money is gone. The government money that you were getting to spew all this propaganda, it's drying up, and there's nothing left for you. You don't represent the majority of opinions, and it's over. You're done.
And the big thing that really stands out to me is right now we have a movie-going problem in America because every time they show any type of passion and really get involved in Star Wars and do 4-hour live streams about movies that came out 15 years ago because they're still emotionally involved in it, we're called man babies. You take it too seriously. Do you want us to be fucking passionate about the medium or not? Make up your goddamn minds.
They'd like it if we were completely dispassionate and we just threw our money at them. That's all that they want. It's just we're just
you
little
don't get
wallets.
both.
Yeah, you can't. You absolutely can't. We're either invested or we're not. And congratulations, you made us indifferent. Like we're not even mad. We're not even mad. You made a terrible Snow White film. We're laughing at you.
Laughing at this, yes.
Yeah, we're just laughing at how much money you lose. We delight in you losing money now because you have made yourself adversarial to the fan base. I used to be such a huge Disney fan. I used to love all kinds of Disney properties and things like that. I love the movies. I love the animation. I love the parks. I don't even go to the parks anymore because the company is just so distasteful to me. Why would I give money to somebody that I know despises me? And only wants my money? They don't even put any effort into creating experiences anymore at the parks because they hate you. They hate you and they just want to take things away at this point. The entire entertainment industry has been taken over by bitter, petulant children. And it shows in every product that they put out, every press release they do, every one of their shill media people that goes out there and writes articles like this. It's like you're just little, bitter, hateful nobodies. And the problem is you're now dinosaurs that are thrashing in the tar. You're getting sucked down. You had your little 3-year run, 4-year run, however long, and it's over. It's over. And now the culture's shifted and you don't know what to do.
I thought the weirdest part of the blame was laid by Rachel Leachman, probably the biggest knob in entertainment media, if you want to consider that, at the Mary Sue. She blames it on MAGA. I always hated the character Snow White because she really just waited around for a prince to save her. And
because you were told that that's the way that you should feel.
And when she did have the chance to escape, she ended up cleaning up after 7 men in the meantime. The new movie allows White to have more agency in her own story. She runs to the home of the dwarves, helps them listen to each other, and then knows she must move on to keep everyone around her safe. She has a prince, but he isn't some guy from a far-off land who comes to sweep her off her feet. He is an actor-turned-bandit who loves their home just as she does and misses the time when her parents ruled it. But do I think that the MAGA side of the world just wants to be angry? They just want to see any kind of change as a bad thing instead of recognizing that this movie allows young girls everywhere to know that kindness is a superpower. So let them be angry. It hurts no one but themselves. So she goes out and admits that she never liked Snow White. In fact, she hated the character, but it's MAGA's fault that the movie failed. Like, how is this Trump's fault?
Well, she's just Rachel Zeglering here. Insult the original to try to build up the new version. And we see this all the time with these brain dead drones like Rachel Leishman. It's just shit on the original while telling you how the new one is good, not understanding why the people who love the original don't care for the new one, that built-in audience that you should have didn't want to go see a new version of it because you changed it. But the original was never any good to begin with. So what are you complaining about? It's ridiculous.
Was the Snow White movie even made for her? It was made for Snow White fans. She clearly hates Snow White. Why the fuck does she care?
It was made for.
Why is she allowed to say anything?
It was all for the little girls who want to see a Snow White with agency. Well, my question, Rachel Leishman, is where are they? Why did they not show up? It's because they don't exist in the numbers that you think they do. You think that everybody thinks like you because you're a dumb bint that lives in a bubble, but not everybody thinks like you. And if MAGA is so powerful that their rejection of this movie was able to tank it, then maybe Disney should start making movies for MAGA by your own logic if they want them to be financially viable. So you're like, who does it hurt? I'll tell you who it hurts. It hurts the investors in Disney. It hurts actors who now, because that money that was spent on that movie is gone. That's money that could have instead been funneled into other projects. It hurt so there's different projects that could have been done that could have employed more people. It hurts them. It hurts the dwarf actors that were kept out of this movie because of Disney's political correctness. It hurts so many different people, and you can't see it because your focus is so narrow and so dumb and so received by what you're told and what they put into your brain instead of actually taking the time to think about, well, wait, who does it hurt?
If Snow White is problematic, why is the character in the story in the movie timeless? People still like that movie. People still watch it. They're still interested in Snow White because the story resonates to this day. It was never a story out of time. It was never problematic. These idiots are the ones that are problematic.
Yeah, and listening to them is what is tanking your entertainment properties. It's why everything's gone to shit. It's why you're losing money hand over fist, and you've lost the audience. Then they've just moved on to other things. They're not even mad about it. Like Snow White fans aren't even mad about it. They're just indifferent. Everything that Disney announces, I'm just indifferent to. We just talked about, like the new Marvel Studios announcement. I'm completely indifferent to it. I don't care. And if you would have told me back in the day, you would have gone back to a young me reading comic books and being like, you're going to get all these comic book movies. And one day you just won't give a shit. I'd have been like, you're nuts. That could never happen. Well, it's happened. I just don't care. And I never cared about this movie because, it's like, although I like the original animated Snow White, I grew up on it. I pretty much knew what this movie was going to be. I knew that it was going to be a modern interpretation, and we were going to get a bunch of bullshit crammed in there. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened. So whatever. I mean, good job, Rachel Leishman. I mean, keep being on the losing side.
If you would like the full Geek Fix podcast, because this is just a portion of it, you do need to go to Think Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description. Aaron and I got plenty more to talk about this week. Lots of fun to be had on Think Critical Patreon.